Hi everyone, my name is Adam from Pactimo. I'm here with Jim and Devon Surgent, who are quite the bike tourers. They this year had planned a 10-week tour through Italy and Greece, but obviously the world had different plans. They started back in February 20th with very flexible plans, but due to COVID-19 and the pandemic quickly moving around Italy, that flexibility really proved to be very crucial. So from self-isolation in Rome to getting rerouted on trains in southern Italy to multiple rebookings and layovers in airports, Jim and Devon have been a true testament to the adventurous nature of bike touring, like they will talk us through today. So they join us right now from their home in Norland, Washington, near Olympic National Park. So thank you both for joining.
Thank you. Good morning or afternoon.
Yeah. Well, maybe we could get started with just how things have progressed since you've gotten back home. How are you both feeling, and are you happy to be home? Stuck?
Well, we definitely are happy to be home. We've actually never been so healthy being away from everybody that's sick. So we've been just absolutely perfect, and it's good to be back home, and we have a nice place to live with a lot of freedom, being close to stuck in a apartment in Rome.
Yeah, I'm sure that was quite a journey, especially seeing Italy so empty, I bet, or at least the streets and all that. Well, maybe we could talk a little bit about you. You obviously have bike traveled quite a bit, like we talked about before. How did you both first start bike touring?
Well, we have a friend in Canada who was not really much of a bicycler. He bicycles, and his wife retired. They were both retired, and they asked a number of couples if they wanted to go on a bicycle tour along the Danube bike trail. Mm-hmm. And so we said, sure, we'd be up for it. So there was 4 couples. It was about a 6-week trip and about a little over 1,000 kilometers or 650 miles or so. Mm-hmm. But we decided 8 people or 4 couples was too many people.
It was just too many different people pulling you in different directions, huh?
Yeah, logistics were a little difficult at times.
And the pace is when everybody sees a different thing to take a picture of, you can't hardly go any distance before someone wants to take a picture.
Or a bathroom
break. Or this or that.
Sure.
So you hardly,
Or a beer break or a coffee break.
So since then, you guys kind of got hooked, though, it sounds like, and kept going.
Oh, absolutely.
So
we were like...
That was in a fall trip, and we decided we wanted to go on another trip right away, and we actually went the following, must have been February, I guess we left again. So less than 6 months, we decided to do another trip, and that was a southern Italy trip.
Oh, cool. So that was back when exactly? That wasn't this last one, that was previously, right?
Yeah, that was probably 2016.
16 was was the first Italy trip.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. The spring.
Or around there anyway.
So how did you guys go about planning for that kind of a trip? I think for a lot of folks that maybe are at least not familiar with bike touring, how did you at least figure out what you were going to pack, how much clothes to bring, how much food to carry, how much you're going to be spending every day, where you're sleeping at night, all those questions that I'm sure people think about before going on a bike tour. How did you guys figure that out?
Well, on the first trip, we kind of got the guy that organized it did a pretty good job of laying out the course and where we would stay, mm-hmm. which was kind of nice. We decided not to go, since there was 8 people, we decided shorter distances was better than longer distance, which was a good thing. And some of the tips that we came up with, where we all talked, we all used the vacuum bags where you roll them up, and it's their packing thing, so you can crush things. But It was a real trial and error because you tend to take too much.
Yeah.
And now we got it down. So the essential things on clothing is your bike clothing.
Yep.
You can buy anything else if you're short on underwear or a shirt and then it's nice to bring home souvenirs. So we end up packing really light on the clothes we take, and then you wear the same clothes the whole time. And
we can tell which trip we're on because of which colored jackets we have. We try to get really tired of the same clothes.
I bet, yeah. Well, it helps when you don't have to carry too much, though, because it's all on your bike.
And then we decided, and then what we do is I have all these bicycle mapping programs, and we try to stay off the main roads.
Okay, cool.
And we just kind of have a roundabout. We know where we're flying in, we know where we're flying home, what town it is, and we have a random route, but usually we vary, it changes as we go along, because we realize that once we're there, either weather's a problem or this or that, or we like somewhere area and what you expect. So you never know what's going to happen. So we're super flexible, and we'll change on a day's notice on the direction. And then we'd make reservations the night before at the next place, or maybe we'll do a couple of nights ahead, but in general, one night ahead. And it's always, we try to do little apartments as much as possible.
Okay, cool. What you said that you use specific bike GPS kind of devices or software. What exactly do you guys use?
Well, this year we went with Ride with GPS because they have an app that works on your telephone. In the past, you couldn't do mapping on your telephone very easy, so I used Osmond, which is a mapping program, and Osmond is a fantastic program. It actually shows you a lot of input that people put in there about different things to find, like historical markers and all this history, and it's an incredible.
It's only Android though, right?
No, it's on Apple.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
But it's an incredible program for additional information. We used to use that exclusively, but this year is the first year we used Ride with GPS because you could do it on your phone, super simple, and so that's the main one we use now.
In terms of like communication and figuring out, like you're saying that you're making these reservations one day before. I'm assuming you guys have, I don't know, some sort of global phone or something, or do you just hop on Wi-Fi or wherever you
T-Mobile.
can? Okay, cool.
T-Mobile for just your regular T-Mobile. When you're in Europe, all internet is free. It's slow internet, 3G I think it is, and then all your text messaging is free, and telephone calls are 20 cents a minute, and you really don't use the phone much because you can't speak the language. So it's like
texting works well.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much free, because whenever we get to a hotel,
they have Wi-Fi
you got Wi-Fi, and so it's been pretty. T-Mobile has been great because you don't have to go there and try to change plans or get a different service. Because we've had some people go there and it's like, oh my God, when they get home they're shocked at their bill.
Yeah.
Or they had to try to get an Italian phone or whatever.
Yeah, I bet.
And we've only maybe had 2 or 3 times where we have not had any coverage where we haven't been able to do something. So it's been easy.
So I guess another question I have is, maybe we take it back a little bit, is how did you guys both meet? I think that you guys both have to have quite a flexible attitude to survive a bike tour together. How did you guys get started in this, and how'd you meet?
We met over 48 years ago. We've been married for 48 years in June. We've been married. And we've worked together in our business. We had a construction business, so we've worked together all our lives. I guess we've been together a long time. So
we met at
a party in Evanston, Illinois.
And
cool.
I think I proposed to her 2 weeks later.
How
so
crazy.
we were 19.
And we weren't into biking at that point.
Yeah, wow. So did you guys travel a lot together over the years? I'm sure you did, but
yeah, we have traveled a lot.
Yeah. So we've
been bicycling we've been bicycling half our life, but it was always just recreational biking.
Okay.
And then it wasn't until our friend invited us on the tour, and then it was like, we're addicted. Now we don't even like vacations unless we we still like vacations, but in general, it needs to
includes a movement. Yeah, I mean, it's such an adventurous way to see the world. You're so exposed. People are very welcoming, I think, especially when they see you roll up in a bike with all these bags, you know, that you're carrying. And your bike is so heavy. It's such an adventure.
And plus, with your bicycle routing, we try to stay way off the beaten path.
Sure.
And in Europe, it's relatively easy because there's so many rural roads that the United States really doesn't have. And so when you're on these rural roads, you're in people's backyards almost, and all of a sudden they turn into gravel, and you're going through a farm field, and you're going like, oh boy, and it's so you see the world from a whole nother aspect. It's really incredible.
We've had to turn around more than once and read.
Yeah. Well, maybe we could talk a little bit about that. What have been some of the craziest moments on the bike that you both have experienced? Do you have a specific anecdote in mind?
Well, I do know that it's
the one in it. Where were we? Where we ended up going through the canals, and then we couldn't get across some railroad tracks, so we ended up going down a beach.
That was in
southern France.
It was in southern France. It was there had been a lot of rain and high tides.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we were close to the water, and all of a sudden we're in these farm fields, and they're totally flooded.
Oh man!
So
it was crazy.
It was an option of trying to walk through the water with the bicycles, because it was probably 6 inches, 8 inches deep.
Wow!
And
we were kind of on little.
And I mean, it was like a big area, and then to go around the other way, to go all the way around, because there's railroad tracks we couldn't get over, was probably going to be a 20 or 30 mile detour.
Oh,
and we're only like 2 or 3 in the afternoon. We're going, holy shit.
Yeah.
So
I ended up getting a big slice in my tire because we were riding down a beach between the water and the railroad tracks, and the rock,
big boulders.
Big boulders, and I ended up getting a huge slice in one of my tires.
Oh, geez. You just kept going, though.
We carry a spare tire because we have 650B tires.
Okay.
And they're not common, you know, so we carry a folding tire, and we're able to swap it out because it was a non-repairable. It didn't blow the tube, but the tube was pooched out like about half an inch outside the side of the tire.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. Wow.
Yeah, we've done several turnarounds and lifting our bikes over barriers and stuff where we shouldn't.
Well, I have to say the worst. Now that you've asked, the worst or the most hectic one was the first time we arrived in Rome. We had to take a train in there, and you get off the train, and you're right in the middle of the heart of everything in Rome, and the cobbles in Rome are so heavy duty.
Wow.
You can't look at your GPS because it's shaking so much.
Wow.
And the buses and the trucks and the cars, and if you don't take the lane, you get sandwiched between the cars. So you have to kind of ride and block the traffic, and it was really...
We're going as fast as traffic anyway, you know.
But you can't read the GPS because you're shaking so much.
Oh, man.
The bike is shaking so much. But that was terrible.
And we took the same route this time. Coming in the train.
Huh.
The first time it was like we went by the Coliseum and couldn't even ride our bikes. We had to maneuver through the crowds.
This time we could do U-turns without even looking.
Oh my gosh, because the roads were so empty.
Because Rome was shut down.
Yeah. Well, so maybe we could show a quick video here that you guys sent to me in advance, just of what it looks like bike touring through Italy for those of you that maybe haven't ever tried or are interested in doing it. So I'll play that now.
In Napoli, where love is king, when boy meets girl, guess what they say?
Buongiorno.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore. Bells will ring, ting-a-ling-a-ling, ting-a-ling-a-ling, and you'll sing Vita Bella. Hearts will play tippe-tippe-tay like a gay tarantella. When the stars make you drool just like pasta fasul, that's amore. When you dance down the street with a cloud at your feet, you're in love. When you walk in a dream, but you know you're not dreaming, signore. Scusami, but you see back in old Napoli, that's amore. That's amore.
Well, the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine. That's amore.
That's amore. Bells will ring, ting-a-ling-a-ling, ting-a-ling-a-ling, and you'll sing Vita Bella. Hearts will play tippe-tippe-tay like a gay tarantella. When the stars make you drool just like pasta fasul, that's amore.
That's amore.
When you dance down the street with a cloud at your feet, you're in love. When you walk in a dream, but you know you're not dreaming, signore. Scusami, bet you see back in old Napoli, that's amore. That's amore.
Oh, so beautiful. Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, maybe one thing we could talk about is, because that video was back in 2016, right?
2016, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe you could talk
No,
a
I think it
little
was
bit.
16.
You could talk a little bit about how different that was from this last trip and what the expectations you had kind of going in. You know, obviously you were starting in late February, kind of when things were maybe kind of starting to pick up in Europe, but obviously it was okay to still travel and you still felt comfortable enough to go. So how did things kind of go once you got there and change as you started riding?
Well, for one thing, Devon had both her knees replaced last year, so we didn't get to do a tour last year.
Oh,
and
bummer.
so this year we were like chomping at the bit. So we had made the reservations probably in December, and it was, you know, it started to happen in China.
Yeah.
And then we said, well, that's China, you know, it's not that, it's pretty far away. And then it, just right before we left, it started hitting northern Italy. And it was during the, what was the celebrations they were having for Easter? Carnival.
Okay.
For Easter, that really set it off. And our daughter was super concerned about us going, and we said, oh, it's northern Italy. We'll be in southern Italy. It's, you know, how bad can it be, you know?
Sure.
So we said, we already had the reservations, and we said, let's go. We'll see what's going to happen. You know, we'll just play with it. If we're stuck there, we're stuck. We're going to be gone for
10 weeks.
10 weeks. So we
What's the
thought,
plan?
okay, what's, you know, we'll just live through it.
Yeah.
So anyway, we headed there, and it started out pretty good.
Well, the first town after we left Rome, we ended up going to it was the Italian American War Museum.
Oh, wow.
And the woman there was telling us that somebody had tested positive for COVID in the town, and they were wondering if the town was going to get locked down. And this is over on the west coast, heading towards Naples.
About a week into the trip.
About a week into the trip. And apparently it was a non-event, so we kept going.
So we said, well, let's head south as fast as we can. Because we pedaled from Rome south and headed towards Naples. And as we were going down, the news was getting worse and worse and worse. And so we get by Naples, and getting into there's a lot of garbage and not very nice stuff north of Naples for riding. So, and it was going to be tough to get into Naples. And then we started going, well, why should we go into a big city where there could be COVID? So we said, let's head over to Bari. And this is where we flexibility and not having reservations anywhere.
Yeah, probably helps.
and we tried to
Change
get on.
plans.
It's impossible to get trains in Italy, at least for any distance.
Oh, really?
With a bicycle.
Mm-hmm.
And
Local trains are fine, but you can't do the long distance high speed trains with bikes unless they're packed.
and with the bus, you could get on a bus, and when you transfer, the next bus driver says we're not taking a bicycle.
Oh, goodness.
So we decided to rent a car, which is easy, and we hopped in the car and drove to Bari. We got to Bari, and they shut down they started shutting down Italy. They had shut down northern Italy, and nobody was in the restaurants. I mean, we were walking there, and they're all the, owners are standing out front of their restaurants, and nobody's going into the restaurants.
Oh, no.
We had now probably 10 cases of COVID.
This is about the 1st or 2nd of March. The first week.
So we said, well, let's head south, keep going south.
Mm-hmm.
And we got down to El Barabello and farther south, and all of a sudden they locked down the country.
Jeez.
And so we done shit.
Now what do we do?
Well, I have a question here from Kyle. He was asking, how many miles do you guys normally do? Or how many were you even able to do during that whole time frame?
We normally try to get at least 1,000 miles in on a trip.
Right, okay. And then you just kind of feel it out day to day.
Yeah. And this time it would have been more.
30 to 40 miles a day.
Mm-hmm.
And then we like to spend a couple of nights,
right.
Unless it's nice. But it's this time we would have done more than 1,000, but usually it's about 1,000 on a 7-8 week trip. We try to make it pretty lax. I mean,
you're on vacation.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. Well, so then you got down to southern Italy, and what happened? I guess so things started shutting down, and you kept riding, I guess, a bit, right? And then.
Yeah, we rode for another 2 or 3 days, but it was increasingly difficult. They had. Cars going down the streets with microphones on them and telling everybody to stay indoor, with loudspeakers, I mean, yeah.
Right.
And then I called the embassy. The embassy was not any good. They were worthless. And then they told me to call the police department and find out what we could do to get back to Rome. And so we went down to the police department. It was so new that they didn't know what to do.
Oh,
and then
man.
one of the people that we rented an apartment with was so concerned about us, they stayed in contact, and they could speak English.
Wow.
So she was fantastic and guided us through the process of getting a permit to travel. And it's the form is something you fill out yourself, and you put your address that you're at, and if you work in an essential business, you put that address, and you're only allowed to go between the 2 points.
Oh, man.
And then if you're out and about, if you're more than just outside of your neighborhood, it's illegal. You could get a fine up to like 400 euros, I think, if you're outside of your neighborhood. And we didn't realize of the impact of that. They said you could exercise, and because we couldn't speak the language, we didn't know all the rules. So when we got to Rome, we said, we were allowed to exercise. Let's go take a look at all the sites.
Oh, man.
And they're all empty.
The only ones with the Colosseum. Only ones with the family stuff. The only ones with the family stuff.
And you were able to still go in and out of these, like the Colosseum and things like that?
Outside.
Oh, okay.
On the outside.
Okay.
But one time we did get stopped, and the cop came up to me and started getting really excited and pissed off. And then when I opened my mouth, he goes, "Oh, dumb tourist." And he goes, "Go back to hotel. Go back to hotel."
Oh, man. So you guys didn't ever end up getting fined at all, or did you?
No.
Oh,
well, we
thank
only
goodness.
did that one day, when we realized that you weren't allowed to walk away. We said we're exercising. You're only allowed to walk in your own neighborhood.
Okay.
Like around the block.
After that, we went to the grocery store or the little market.
Huh.
We got
Man.
friendly with the wine people, the wine store, and
What
Yeah.
a shame, huh? So after that point in time, did you start then planning how to get back home, or what
Yeah,
was
so
the
we ended
thinking?
up from there. We rented a car. In fact, to get a rental car was impossible because they're limited hours.
Wow.
And one of the guys that rented this apartment, he was fantastic. He went and waited 45 minutes in front of the rental agency because they were supposed to be open at a certain time and they weren't.
Wow.
And then he came back, and we decided to go back there again. And finally, someone showed up, and we were able to rent a car to Rome. We got to Rome, and fortunately, we applied Lufthansa and decided to. We like Lufthansa, and they were one of the last planes to fly. They continued to fly. Where I think Delta, United quit flying to Italy.
Yep.
The U.S. is going to close their borders to everybody from the outside. So
Wow.
it took us 5 changes because every time we changed the flight, it was canceled within hours.
one leg would get canceled.
Within an hour to overnight, you'd wake up in the morning and your flight's canceled, and then you would be on hold for at least. It'd take 5 hours every time we got a cancellation.
Oh my
Because
goodness.
you're put on hold forever.
To rebook.
And then while you're on hold with them, they cut you off, and and then you got to redial and wait on hold again forever. So it was kind of torturous trying to get the flights, and it was quite boring sitting in an apartment all day where you're locked up. Well, a lot of you people know that now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think everybody is feeling that. I mean, so I know you had mentioned one story about getting yelled at by some German police or something, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Was that at the airport? So after you left
Yeah.
Italy?
So we had a 17-hour layover in Frankfurt.
Mhm.
And so we rented a hotel that was right at the airport, right in the airport. And when we get off the plane, you're met by the German police department. They've got rifles over their shoulders.
Oh, wow.
They're saying all Germans over here, everybody else over here. So they divided you by nationality. And so you're kind of going, oh boy.
Even other EU citizens had to go in. I mean, there was Germans and other people.
Right.
That was
Okay.
it.
And so
Everybody was
they-
wearing masks at this point and all that.
nobody.
No,
It was kind
wow.
of shocking.
They were
Wow.
in Rome. They were
They
in
were
Rome.
in Rome. Everybody in Rome was wearing masks and gloves all the time.
But everything was
Wow.
pretty much business as usual
Other
in
than-
Frankfurt.
as
Wow.
far as
Yeah.
protective gear. And
Yeah.
so then they have you wait in line, and everybody's kind of jam packed in there, and they go one at a time up to customs. And usually, when you go into not customs, but just to answer questions, usually it's
Immigration.
it's a group of people, like that travel
Family
together, like
members.
family.
Right.
And this time they only allowed one person up to talk to the cop at a time.
Oh,
And
wow.
so then I went first, and then I started to walk. I took about 5 steps and I was waiting for Devon, and then that's when the German police, guy goes, "Don't stop, keep moving," and makes me go up and leave, and I can't even wait for Devon.
Oh, my
'cause-
goodness. Wow.
Yeah, it was strange. And then we had to spend the night, on the chairs at the airport. It was,
airport.
and then we felt like if we're going to get COVID,
This is where it's going to happen. Yeah.
Sitting at the
we
chairs
were
at the
wiping
airport.
down everything, and we wore our masks. We had some masks.
Uh-huh.
And, we were wiping down everything and using the, hand sanitizer like crazy. But we said, and it was like nobody was on the flights either. It was just the flight from Rome to Germany. There was probably 20% filled, and
Wow.
probably flew on a 747 from Seattle to Vancouver, Canada.
Uh-huh.
Frankfurt.
Frankfurt to Vancouver, and there was probably 80 people on the flight on a
Holy
747.
crap. Wow.
Yeah. So,
This was,
this is saying it was easy.
and this was roughly when exactly? Was this in late March when you guys were flying back, or when was
This
this?
was
Yes,
Late March.
April
March
20,
March
March 20th.
20th.
Oh,
March
wow.
20th.
Because we were in Italy for about 4 weeks.
Oh man, so you guys cut the trip 6 weeks short. Oh man. So what are the plans now that you're at home? I mean, obviously we all have to stay at home, but do you think you could squeeze in another trip this year if the time allows for it and the world allows for it?
Well, if the world allows for it, we definitely would go back in a heartbeat. We
Sure.
love bicycling southern Italy because it's really conducive to rolling hills, beautiful countryside, great food. And so I think before we would go again, we would want to see a vaccine,
Sure.
just to make sure that the traveling and you feel safer again and things can be opened up. Because I tell you, Rome isn't a whole lot of fun without any restaurants.
If you're just stuck at home and you have to cook your own Italian food.
Yeah, cook everything yourself.
Yeah, exactly. It kind of defeats the purpose. Oh,
Yeah.
man. But you were all still able to see at least the Colosseum, right? I saw in your photos. What other sites were you still able to see? I guess in some ways the best possible time because nobody was there. What
Nobody
else did
was
you
there.
see, I guess, there?
Yeah, we've seen it both ways. Totally bumper to bumper people and totally empty.
But I have to say, as much as it sounds like it's cool to see those sites, it's actually
It was very eerie.
it was eerie enough that it was kind of like better with people.
Yeah.
Even though we're not big crowd people, but
I hate
Yeah.
going to the big tourist lines, and that's why we try to stay away from all of that stuff.
Sure. Oh, man. So maybe you could talk a little bit more about, I guess, what was Italy like during the lockdown and how were you approached by the public in general just because you were tourists there? It sounds like you got quite a bit of help from everybody that was there, but
Yeah, we did.
obviously
we
not speaking Italian too must have been a challenge. So how
Right.
did you navigate that?
Well, we're pretty good at, we've been to Italy like 3 times, and so we're pretty, and with our tours, we're able to communicate without knowing the language, because between Google Translate and just trying to learn some of the basics, it's pretty easy to navigate your way through, buying groceries and just dealing with people on an everyday basis.
Right.
We were lucky enough in Rome to have known the guy that rented us an apartment there.
we've known him for several years. So
And
that-
when we
Oh,
were
cool.
stuck in southern Italy, he said, if you can make it back to Rome, you can stay in this apartment as long as it takes for you to
Wow.
leave for free.
Oh, man, that's so amazing.
yeah, it was nice.
Oh.
So it was really great.
Yeah, we did have a lot of help along the way.
Fabrizio.
Fabrizio.
Huh.
But between the woman helping us get the permit, and then another of somebody we rented from, he printed the permits up for us and
Wow.
helped us fill them out. And
You had asked a question earlier, what was one of the more memorable bike things we did as far as riding our bikes? And
Sure.
it was through the Osmond mapping.
Uh-huh.
We saw that they had put underground crypts and churches in this one area.
What?
And so, we were in this area, and I'm looking, and I see this little cross, and it's in the middle of a farm field, and the cross indicated it was a crypt or a underground church.
Okay.
So we rode over to this farm field, and it's grass with cows in the field about 3 feet high, maybe the grass. And we just walked over to where it was showing on the map, and sure enough, there's a hole in the ground. And actually, we have a film of it, like,
we do have a film
like
of it.
Indiana Jones. And we walked down into this hole, and it's like it's probably
That's
about 15 by 25 foot underground cavern with arches.
Wow.
Man-made.
They had
Man-made.
just totally made an underground crypt where I think it was a crypt where they would bury people.
Wow.
And they had little spots for candles, and it must have been about 2,000, 3,000 years old.
Wow.
And it was just so cool to, you're just out here and it's in the middle of some farmer's field, and United States, there would have been a gigantic, huge tourist thing evolving around it. So
Probably.
So those are the places we were headed to when we got sidetracked.
we wanted to try to get to as many of research and try to do all that stuff as we traveled. This time we weren't able to.
Next time.
Yeah, you had mentioned that you were hoping to make it to Greece, right? I guess have you both been through there, or what was the plan
No.
to do in Greece?
We've never been to Greece, and so Bari, that town I had mentioned, has a
Sure.
ferry that goes to Greece. So our
Oh,
plan
man.
was to we were going to meet some friends that were going to join us for 2 weeks bicycling southern Italy, and then either our daughter might have come out. You know, it was all pretty loosey goosey, but when they left, we were going to try to head to Greece for 2 or 3 weeks because it's an overnight ferry. I think it's an 8-hour ferry.
Oh, wow.
And it's so that's simple with the bicycle. Throw your bikes on, go out on the ferry, cross the Adriatic.
I know you're in Greece, yeah.
And then we would have just done the same thing, played it by ear, and just done our mapping. And I did a little pre-mapping before you go there on the areas that are possible. And
Greece is a lot hillier than southern Italy, and with my new knees, it would have been a little more difficult.
And then before you know it, that was all shut down.
Yeah.
We couldn't go to Greece. We couldn't. Everything was shut down.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted anybody from Italy.
Wow. Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's like you were in the hot spot when it was happening. Yeah. So getting back home when you arrived, what happened at the airport? I guess when you made it to Vancouver, right?
Vancouver.
Yeah.
Well, we get to Vancouver, and it was basically business as usual. All the stores were open. Nobody was wearing masks. We get to they have we could clear customs in Vancouver rather than Seattle.
Oh, cool. The U.S. has its own customs there.
And we get to the desk, and the agent asked us where we'd been, and we said Italy, and he goes, "Oh, well, I'm going to have to take you to another room." We go, "Okay." we go in this room, and we're the only ones there, but there's like 4 or 5 different agents behind their desks. And we go up to one of them, and he asked us how we were feeling. We said, fine. He said, okay, fill out this paperwork. And it was just our name and address, phone number, where we had been.
Right.
Gave it back to him, and we sat there for half an hour, and he's putting it in the computer. And then he comes up to us and says, well, you can go now. Be careful. That was it.
Oh, my goodness.
They didn't tell us to quarantine. They didn't take our temperature.
Nothing.
They didn't do anything.
So then we got on the flight to Seattle, and that was the first while we were waiting for our flight, it was the first time we actually heard somebody coughing. And this guy was coughing and not covering his mouth, and everybody's kind of looking at him. We get on the plane, and he's on the plane with us. We went to the back of the plane because there was only about 12 people on the whole plane.
Wow.
And we get to Seattle, get our luggage, and our daughter had dropped off our vehicle at the airport, and we got
with a change of clothes.
With a change of clothes.
After being in the same clothes from Rome to there, we felt so contaminated.
Oh goodness!
A truck. Her and her husband dropped off our vehicle, and we changed our clothes, and we drove home. That was it. And we self-quarantined for 14 days.
But they never, it was
Nobody
kind of
asked
shocking.
us anything.
They were literally closed the borders except for U.S. citizens. So they were closed.
Right.
They never checked us more than asking us how we felt, and they didn't tell us to self-quarantine.
Wow.
It was, yeah.
Oh, man. You came from Italy. Well, obviously you're both healthy and nothing. Yeah, I guess you weren't carrying anything, so that's all good to hear. But still, that's so crazy to hear that there wasn't a process really in place.
Yeah,
man.
People left us food at the end of our driveway.
Yeah. People were shopping for us and leaving it at the end of the driveway, and I'd bring it in and wash it off. And
well, I do want to leave some time open for anybody out there who's watching who wants to ask a question for Jim and Devon. They've definitely had quite the adventure, so if you do have questions, please do ask. One thing that I always do ask at the end is I would love to hear what you guys say about this, since you are both cyclists on the recreational side, but then also touring cyclists. I'd love to know more about what does the sport of cycling mean to you?
Oh, gosh.
I'll go first.
Freedom, I think. It's just a fun way to travel and see the world on a little slower side. than traveling by car or train or plane. Obviously, we have to travel by those means, but it's just nice to go slow.
Yeah.
Well, for me, it's I like the health aspects, and then I'm competitive against myself. So I like it for the just the pushing myself all the time. I really enjoy that. When Devon had her knees replaced, I was doing a lot of riding by myself, and then with all the I got all the not racing, but the bike computers for checking your times and all that fancy stuff, and
cool.
And it was fun just pushing myself, which I normally. And then that year I also rode the Seattle to Vancouver ride and the Seattle to
Portland.
to Portland ride.
Oh,
they
cool.
were a couple of weeks apart, so they were nice long rides. 150 miles in the saddle one day and 50 miles the next day.
Super
to
cool.
Portland. So it really, I'm much more of a competitive rider, and I kind of just push myself, and I really like that, kind of adrenaline thing.
That's cool. Thank you for sharing. I did get another question here from Kyle. Let me see if I can add it here. But essentially what he's asking is, if you would have known the seriousness of what you would have faced there in Italy, would you have gone, or would you have chosen another place to travel, or just postponed the trip for another time?
We have no regrets, and I would do it over again myself. I mean, I would do this whole trip, even though it was crazy and not at all what we expected.
Right.
If we could have seen the future, we probably would have canceled, obviously. But
Sure.
No regrets.
After doing it, no, it was an adventure.
It was an adventure. It was so enjoyable. The last week in Rome, even though you're having to navigate this stuff, it's part of like staying busy and doing something different, which is why we like biking. And you never know what's going to, you just have to be flexible.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for the people that have their everything set in stone.
Yeah.
Yeah, hotel every night for 10 weeks.
A lot of people do that. It's like they're afraid to get to where they're going to stay the next night, and it's okay if it was a night or two, but if you plan your whole trip with, every night planned out, it's a tough way to go when you have
You're pretty locked in.
COVID-19's hitting.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, I'm very happy that you guys are both okay, and that the adventure was overall a positive one, and that it sounds like you got so much support. Any upcoming bike tour plans, maybe, or ideas that you guys have swimming in the back of your mind once things kind of settle down?
We do know a person in.
Sorry, your request timed out.
We'd like to go back to Italy again. We do love Italy, but the other alternative we've talked about is Bolivia, because we do know
cool.
We had a foreign exchange student in Bolivia, and we've been down there once, and that was our second option as a place to go that might be less prone to the COVID virus, although they still have it down there.
But
but when the vaccine hits, we're thinking of
it's not as biker
Bolivia.
friendly though there as Europe is.
Sure. More remote, but more adventurous, maybe.
Yeah, definitely more adventurous. And we would probably start in Tarija and head down towards into Argentina.
Oh, super cool. Well, maybe we'll have you guys join us after that trip and tell us a little bit more about how it goes. Well, thank you so much, Jim and Devon. I've really enjoyed the time getting to know you guys and hearing the story. I'm sure our community has too. If you guys have other questions, though, just let us know in the comments. We'll see if we can get some answers from Jim and Devon. But thanks, y'all, both for watching and, for joining us. Thank you, Devon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.